Yeah, I think. Oh,
No, go ahead. You can.
we're recording now.
Yes, that's
Uh, Joseph, you notice anything
Oh,
different
God
about my
damn it,
room?
Chief. Yes, thank you very much. Appreciate that. I hate that thing, man. I don't know how you sleep with that closet open. That's creepy as hell.
But anyways, what's our leading question for this one?
I
How
don't.
are synthetic judgments a priori possible? How are they even
That
possible?
that's my question as well. I mean, I found so many contradictions that I couldn't finish the last pages. Yeah, exactly.
Maybe a better question to start with is what is a synthetic?
Yeah.
What is a synthetic judgment? What is an a priori judgment? What is yeah?
Yeah.
What do those words mean?
Well, when from the very beginning, when he starts out by defining all the terms, he starts creating contradictions because at the beginning he says that there are two type of cognitions, right? I don't know if sorry, I'm taking up all the session, but I have so many questions. At the beginning, he says that there are two type of cognitions: the one a priori and cognitions, and a posteriori, which are empirically. He says a posteriori or empirically. And then he goes on to say that synthetic judgments are empirical, right?
Well, so they empirical judgments are synthetic, but he's arguing that there are also synthetic judgments that are a priori. That that's
Yeah,
that's the weird thing. The weird one is
yeah, it's contradictory, yeah.
So are like synthetic judgments attributes to something? Like it's still um I, I don't know, Nevit. I was thinking in terms of programming, like you have class objects which are like analytical, and then you have attributes to the class which would be synthetic. So like the dog is brown would be a synthetic judgment.
yes. I
Okay.
mean, classic, really easy cases of a priori judgments are definitional. So, for example, um, a bachelor is an unmarried male is a classic case example people use for um, analytic judgment because because the predicate so the subject bachelor is an unmarried male. So the subject is bachelor, the predicate is unmarried male. But that statement doesn't you don't learn any new information because the idea unmarried male is already included in the idea of bachelor. And so it's analytic because you get no additional information from that statement.
Yeah,
Whereas a synthetic judgment is one where the predicate is not included in the subject. Is that a good way to put it? Like
yeah,
it's not, you're adding something to the idea that isn't already there in the concept itself.
yeah. But the example that he gives about the expansion or extension of bodies and weight of bodies is, I don't know, I couldn't understand it because he says that the extension is analytical, but the weight, I think, is synthetic. So it's,
So and maybe you realize just to be clear about what he means by extension. And again, some of you other guys, please correct me if I say something wrong or stupid. But as far as I can tell, extension just means has three dimensions roughly. It takes up space. Like emotions are unextended because they don't take up space, but a physical object is extended because it takes up space. So extension just occupies something like
yeah,
occupies space.
and that's analytical. But the same could be said about having weight because if it's matter, he also talks about matter and as an object or object as matter. You could say that, well, of course, matter has weight, so it should be analytical as well. I
What do
don't
we
know.
mean when we mean weight?
Yeah,
He
wouldn't
talk
that be like an attribute?
he talks about yeah, but extension is also an attribute. He talks about that in, I can't find the page here. If you give me a few seconds, I don't remember where when he starts talking about, yeah, I have the Pluhar edition. He starts talking about the distinction between analytic and synthetic judgments on page 51. And on page 52, he says experiential judgments are one and all synthetic. And then he, on page 753, he gives the example of bodies. And on bodies, he says, well, he talks about extension being analytical. And on page 54, he goes on to say that heaviness or weight, well, I said weight, but he talks about heaviness, is synthetic. And that is in synthetic judgments that are a priori, which is contradictory because he said that synthetic judgments are experiential, and experiential cognitions are not a priori. So I don't know. I think the problem is there, page 53, 54.
So maybe that's a really good question then because as to why is extension bodies are extended as an analytical judgment, but bodies have weight as a synthetic judgment.
I think he tries to say that it's because there's an a priori cognition, which is space. So I think he's advancing his further ideas, but
But I suspect it's the other way around. I think what he's doing is he's exploring. So I think he takes, and I'll correct me if I'm wrong, Eric, or someone else, but he thinks that these judgments are a priori and synthetic, and then by the fact that we have certain kinds of a priori synthetic judgments, from that he's going to deduce certain things. For example, the nature of space and time and so on. So I think that I don't think he's presupposing space when he makes that claim that weight is synthetic and extension is a priori. He's going to use that as the basis as a way into explaining what he thinks space and time are. Is that correct,
Yeah.
Eric?
Yeah, because like what are you weighing? Like what are we weighing? Like I guess and I looked at it as again, I'm this is probably completely wrong, but I looked at it from programming terms. If I'm going to do a class object, the attributes like that class object, the thing in and of itself is going to be the analytic, I thought, and all the individual app. Like if I had like a dog, it's like out there. Maybe dog's a bad example, but like I'm using it anyway. Like or maybe like a class animal, and then you have each attribute in that class of like weight, breed, things like that, and those are synthetic. But you still have to like experience or interact with it in order to like weigh it or find out what those attributes are, which is how synthetic is considered.
So strictly speaking, analytic, in an analytic proposition, you don't get any more information than is what is already in the concept. So again, just to take that really simple example, and a bachelor is an unmarried male. That doesn't give you any more information. The unmarried male is already part of the concept of bachelor.
yeah.
So you don't really learn anything there.
Yeah.
But if you say the bachelor is bald, there's nothing about bachelor that the notion of baldness is not a necessary component of the concept bachelor. So that's synthetic, and it's something you could only learn from experience when you're like, well, this bachelor's bald. Well, you have to have an experience to discover that, and that attributes.
Mm.
Like
But
Louis was saying, they're both attributes, but some attributes are essential to the concept, and some attributes are, I don't know, to use the old term, accidental, something like that.
yeah, but then he goes on to say that mathematics is not experiential, but then he goes on to say that all mathematical knowledge is synthetic. So
That's the big mystery. That's exactly the problem. This whole section is setting up that problem. He's making this claim there are a priori synthetic judgments. And that seems to make, as you say, that seems to make no sense. And yet it seems to
or
be
if they're
true,
possible. Yeah.
or seems to be not possible. And so then that's like he says, that's the question. How are those possible? And that's what drives him into the critique of pure reason.
Or to refine it a little bit, the explanation of how they're possible has not yet been achieved, and yet it seems that they're actual. We math is powerful. It's kind of proven itself, and Newton has kind of proven himself. And Anselm's ontological proof hasn't proven shit. So there must be, if Anselm's going to make a point, he's making synthetic a priori judgments. But so, I mean, part of what he's saying is that metaphysics takes a clue, since Plato, from the power of mathematics, right? Whatever math is doing here, we can do with more than just math. Reasoning. We can reason and say these things about God and freedom of the soul and things like that. This is prior mode of metaphysics, right? But up to this point, metaphysics is fallen into disrepute. It's dogmatic. Why is it that mathematics is actual and powerful? Why is it that the natural sciences have now been established as actual and powerful? And yet metaphysics has no purchase.
Louise, yet again, you're ahead of the curve.
I actually have I have a little bit of the confusion that Louis has. I can see that extension is analytic because a body literally by definition a body takes up space, but to say that a body does not by definition, I don't know. I guess
I think
I just struggle a little bit with that one, with the weight one.
it might be me bringing too fine a distinction on it, but don't the natural scientists distinguish between having mass and having weight?
Yes.
And where we might even say a body having mass is analytical, but a body having weight, exhibiting weight, is not. You can imagine a body that's weightless.
Sure. So do you think Kant would, if he was aware of that distinction, do you think he would accept that mass is a body has mass is analytical?
I think it would fit into substance, right? A body has substance, or
Okay. Well, that makes more sense to me.
Whereas weight is always it's a measurement with, relative gravity. It's not given already in the concept of body.
Yeah, in fact, if you have a body in deep space, it has no weight, but it still has mass. So Carmen's question, yes. So, if you think about his example in the book, when I'm reading the paragraph where he explains it, it makes more sense to me when I just think about it. But when he says, like, if you think of 7 plus 5 is equal to 12, if you just think about 7 and you just think about 5, if I just thought about those, there's nothing in thinking about 7 and thinking about 5 that necessarily seems to imply 12. And yet it does. And that's kind of the weird thing. Well, it's not, there's nothing in the concept of 7, 5 that necessarily implies 12, and yet we do know necessarily 7 plus 5 is 12. And so the necessarily part is at least associated with the a priori thing. You know that that's a fact. It's an absolute fact, but it doesn't seem it's not like the bachelor unmarried male thing. There's nothing essential to the concept of 7 or 5 or even 7 next to 5 that necessarily implies 12. So the 12, 7 plus 5 equals 12 seems to add content. So that's why it's synthetic, but it's also a priori because it's something you can know, and you don't even have to have experience. That's again the weird thing. So, empirical judgments like that bachelor is bald, you have to have an empirical experience to make that synthetic judgment. But 7 plus 5 is equal to 12. You don't have to have any empirical evidence. Or like, one of the examples I use in class is if you say, for example, the sum of the angles of a triangle is 180 degrees, you can prove that deductively using Euclidean geometry. If it was an empirical judgment, then what you would have to do is you would have to go measure, 100,000 triangles, and the inductive conclusion, if you were using induction, where you see a bunch of examples and draw then a general conclusion, from seeing a bunch of examples, that data never gives you 100% confidence. And so if you measured, the angles on a million triangles in a plane, the best you could do is say, well, it seems like every single time it is so damn close to 180 degrees that we can inductively say, well, for all practical purposes, that sum is 180 degrees. But that's not what we say. We don't say, well, you can measure a whole bunch and it's so close we should say that. No, we say, no, it's 180 degrees. It just flat is. There, I mean, it's not approximately, it's not a matter of probability. Empirical judgments, there's always the possibility that if you'll make one more measurement and it will disconfirm your hypothesis that you've compounded from a bunch of instances. It's always possible you'll have a disconfirming instance. But in the case of triangles, you can prove it, and you can know with 100% certainty that the sum of the angles of every triangle in Euclidean space is 180 degrees. And that's what's weird. It's not something you can figure out empirically, and it is synthetic, but you know it a priori. How does that happen? Sorry, I feel like I'm preaching.
No. I like
That was
the
good
example
sermon.
he uses from geometry. The shortest distance between 2 points is always going to be a straight line. If you just focus on the concept of point and 2 points and short distance, you don't yet have enough for a straight line. They're not contained in those concepts.
So when he says speculative a priori cognition on B14, and when he says a priori proposition, is he using these interchangeably? Because it seems like he's using a lot of different language to kind of say it's the same thing. Like when he says analytic principle versus analytic a priori judgment. Yeah, I'm just having a hard time like keeping these separate and understanding if he's saying something different or if he's equivocating these these words.
Sorry, I mean, I missed the first part there, Mario. In terms of when he's distinguished between kind of principle and a judgment.
So
Yeah,
when he says a speculative a priori cognition versus synthetic a priori, are those the same thing?
no, that wouldn't be the same thing. Speculative and synthetic are not synonyms.
Hmm.
When does he use the word speculative? Maybe I haven't.
He drops it at the end of the paragraph on B14,
14.
or
Okay.
towards the end of the paragraph.
Do you have the Pluhar edition?
Yes,
What page is that? 55 or 56?
55.
55. I don't see. Okay. Yeah. Now, on such synthetic, it is expansive principles depends the whole final aim of our speculative a priori cognition. For analytic principles,
In
Yeah,
general, and when he's talking about speculative, he's talking about theoretical
Hmm.
philosophy
yeah,
As opposed to practical.
as
yeah,
opposed to
and
practical.
that should be mathematics, I think, because he just talked about it. Just before that, yeah.
Joey and I were wondering about the word intuition.
Yeah, me too, yeah.
And so I mean, I'm not, I hesitate to offer a definition because I can't think of a, I can't think of a way to define it without getting myself in trouble. But
Ah,
at least sensory intuition is like literally like Alistair Welchman chases. Sorry to bring up that emotional trauma, but
I like how you connected. Okay, based off the principles of contingency that they're next to each other, you talk about getting in trouble for saying something wrong about intuition, and then about Alistair Welchman. I think those are connected. I'm just saying, yeah.
maybe there's something analytical. Um,
Alice is his thesis advisor and teaches at UTSA. He comes to some of our classes. Great professor. His partner, Dr. Judith Norman's amazing. Context, I'm sorry.
but he told me one time he thinks of intuitions as something like bare particulars, like it's like. But anyway, intuition. One of my questions, and this is in that like B15 to B16, I guess right around B16 on page
Yeah,
57 of the Pluhar.
57, yeah.
Um, so intuition, I
Yeah.
think of intuition for Kant as having to do with sensory experience, sensory intuitions. It is, would it, is it, would he ever, would he ever use the word intuition when he's talking about like when I imagine something in my mind, like if I, or is that like if I imagine a
No,
triangle or imagine a dog,
no.
is, or
Yeah.
is intuitions always and only sensory? They're always
He,
sensory.
yeah, he uses the word intuition in a very counterintuitive way because, yeah, I
Well,
think,
it doesn't mean what we often think it. Like I have this intuition about,
yeah, but he talks about it in practical terms because he says on page 57, I avail myself of the fingers of my hand as intuition. So it's like a tool, like a tool. I don't know. It's
and he's like counting.
yeah, sensory as yes, Nevit says before sensory. How do you define it? Sensory impression or something? Or I mean, using the yeah the fingers to count. It's an intuition, which I think is counterintuitive.
Well, it depends on what you mean by intuition. I mean, Kant has very specific definitions for words, and sometimes he doesn't tell us what they are. And I think sometimes it's because he's assuming definitions that were given, I don't know, by scholasticism or by other prior philosophical movements. But so I don't know who started using that word intuition the way that Kant uses it. I don't, did he coin that way of using it, or is he borrowing
Basically,
it
it's
from?
Kant, as far as I know.
No, to be honest, I think he's doing something Kant peculiar to Kant, but it's not that far removed from where he's coming from. Here, intuition, I mean, is the faculty by which anything comes in.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it's not
Yeah.
precisely sensory. I mean, but
Well, it is almost always sensory. I was going to give a little qualification. It's not always sensory, strictly speaking, right? The forms of intuition govern our senses, right? That's how we take the world to be objects in the world to be spatial and ordered temporally. But we can also use our intuition to imagine perfect circles, even if we never with our eyes sense a perfect circle. And so this is still an operation within the form of intuition, even if we don't sense it.
But when you say that, when you say I can imagine a perfect circle, is the circle the like what I'm imagining? Is that intuition, or are you just saying that I can use the forms of intuition to generate an image in my mind?
That would be
And
an
why he brought
intuition.
up Plato?
Say that again, Eric.
Yeah, that would be an intuition, right?
It would be an intuition.
Yeah, when you imagine a perfect circle, that would be an intuition for
Okay.
it just is not a sensory. It's not given us to by the senses.
Okay.
wouldn't he can't say that's like what Pluhar says it's presentation, Vorstellung.
Yeah, there you go. What's presented to the mind is presented as that presentation is intuition.
Vorstellung.
Okay.
And then there's a problem with the translation. He should have translated, I don't know what word Kant used, but I don't
So
know.
this is jumping ahead a little bit. I don't mean to, but just to maybe help with intuition. You know, when I experience things, roughly speaking, I have sensory intuitions that are then processed by the mind, or maybe the intuition is already processed. But anyway, there's these two things, these two parts. There's the way the mind structures things, and then there's the stuff that comes in. And the stuff that comes in, again, I'm not going to say is intuition but anyway, I'll let Eric say that because I'm not sure enough. But the intuition is associated with like data coming in, and then the mind, it's the side of the mind is it processes that. So intuition I was going to ask, is it passive? But it seems like when I think of circle, that doesn't seem to be passive.
That's right. That's part of the trick. I mean, it's primarily passive, but it's not strictly passive in every application. And that's a really good example. Imagining a perfect circle. That's not a purely passive activity. By and large, for the most part, sensory intuition we can think of as being passive. Insofar as an object is given in us an experience, then that's intuition doing the given, right? But at the same time, Kant will be talking about objects constituted by the understanding. The same object that's given to us in intuition is also constituted by the understanding. So insofar it is given to us, it is intuited. And insofar as it's intuited, it must conform to either spatiality or temporality or both.
Is that why on page 50 on the Plutarch when he's talking about the section 3 he says that but Plato is this is page 50 middle of the paragraph, but Plato is no exception. It is human reason's usual fate and speculation to finish its edifice as soon as possible and not to inquire until afterwards whether a good foundation has been in fact laid out. Then all sorts of rationalizations are hunted up in order to reassure us that the edifice is sturdy or preferable, even to reject it altogether so late and risky in examination of it. So is he saying that is he saying like Plato got it a little bit right? Like there's this synthetic a priori concept of pure mathematics, but that these attributes that we derive from it come from experience in a way? Because it sounds very almost Neoplatonic, but I think to me it's almost saying like we kind of get that, but we don't.
I don't think he thinks that the truths of mathematics are, they may arise or be, they may be initially inexperienced, but they're not from experience.
So they're okay, okay. So they are like an extension, but not like, but not from. They're not okay. That well, yeah, I guess that makes a little bit more sense. Okay, that's interesting.
Eric, so the part of intuition that isn't sensory, you were describing that before, but did you say that that was for the pure forms of intuition, like space time? Because those aren't actually given, they're what by which that is given. They're the
Right,
conditions.
right. But he also, I mean, he goes on to discuss the imaginary, how much of geometry is predicated on an imaginary construction, a construction that's never given to the senses. But yet the mind can work on these forms of intuition and imagine triangles and perfect circles. So it's intuition. It just doesn't come to us through the senses.
Okay. So uh one thing I know, probably the only thing I know about Kant really, but the transcendental aesthetic, which I believe we're doing next week,
The time
that has
or
a lot to do
space.
with intuition. So I think some of our confusion will be hopefully somewhat uh answered next week. Probably not, but we can always hope, I guess.
Eric, could you confirm or disconfirm my response to Carmen's question?
It just did. Yeah.
Oh, you
So,
did. Okay.
uh,
Oh, you did.
uh,
Okay. Thank you.
so just strictly, yeah, right. Again, we can talk about space and time as concepts, but do that later, right?
Yeah.
Because first for Kant, before they're ever concepts, before space and time take a conceptual form, they're always already forms of intuition, and it's the forms as such which make us able to make synthetic a priori judgments in mathematics.
I mean, I think that's a I don't want to sound too effusive. Anyway, I thought that was an impressive insight, Carmen, because to recognize that math and geometry are tied up in those forms of spatial and temporal intuition is a
Right. And
important insight.
I think that I like the geometry because it's easier to kind of point to the spatiality of geometry. The 7 plus 5 is a little harder, but if you pay close attention to how he discusses, yeah, that's right. It's the one next to the other, the successiveness of it, which is built out of. So our whole number system is arguably from already being spatial temporal beings. Or spatializing, temporalizing beings, more accurately.
What could you say that again? I was confused.
We'll get there soon. But what part of the transcendental aesthetic, he's discussing space and time, and one of the fundamental features of both is they have a next to it. Like space has a space next. You can mark out a portion of space, and there's always going to be another portion of space that's next to it, another portion of space that's next to it. You can take a moment in time, and there's always going to be a moment in time before it and a moment in time after it. So it's this sequential, series of numbers or spaces, he takes to be grounded in the forms of intuition.
Okay. I this isn't necessarily Kant, but have you ever seen an explanation for why Arabic numerals have been able to provide a more powerful basis for all sorts of different mathematics than Roman numerals? Because if they're just merely symbols,
Mhm. No,
then why does it seem like Arabic numerals enabled people to have incredible developments in mathematics, and there was something limiting about the Roman numerals?
it has to do with the position. The position gives value. It's not the same that if one number is on the left or on the right. It gives that's the difference with the Roman numerals. I think according to what I understand.
Thanks.
I think it's interesting how Plato's already kind of touching on some of this with respect on his discussion on numbers, specifically like questions about how one sum becomes another, how one becomes two. Uh, in his discussion of the forms, like here's one, and like when does this become two, right? So in a way, Kant is sort of giving an answer to that, especially with what Eric was just saying about space and time.
My thesis advisor claimed that Kant started out as a Platonist, but then changed, but then developed his own thing. But then I had another professor tell me that that was a silly thing to say. So I don't know.
He was also heavily influenced by Aristotle.
Hmm.
Chase, you want to do the obligatory Plato, what a dick?
You know, uh, okay, Plato sucks. I said it, but um, there's bigger fish to fry.
Yeah.
I don't know. Plato's like, meh, just let him do his thing. He's dead. Died a long time ago. Let's just, you know, I'll let Plato be. I'll not say anything bad about Plato beyond Plato sucks. I mean, he's better than Aristotle, in my opinion.
Boy, that's a controversial statement. When I was in grad school, someone told me you can divide the whole world of philosophy into Platonists and Aristotelians, and they've been fighting ever since Aristotle.
Like the School of Athens painting. Is it Raphael?
Yeah, that's right. It's Raphael.
Yeah.
You got Plato pointing to the sky and Aristotle pointing to the here and now.
Oh, I thought we were talking about Ninja Turtles. I'm sorry.
I mean, we are too.
Gotcha.
That's analytically included.
Got to get that jab in there. I'm sorry. I deserve that. I deserve.
Where is Hunter? I feel I feel abandoned. I'm the only one drinking a PBR.
Good.
Hey, he's been reforming. He's been drinking IPAs and stouts and porters and
See, it's the influence of the law. And I don't think it's a moral law, it's like the law of good taste or whatever
Exactly.
it is.
Exactly. That's right.
Is Hunter paid
That
for?
is that's like subjective universality necessity. I don't know.
Maybe,
I'm butchering the critique of judgment. Sorry, but
maybe.
Sorry, did I mention last week when we were discussing
yeah.
the game that Hume has an essay on the standard of taste?
Hmm.
Did I mention
Yeah.
that in Hume's essay on the standard of taste, he visits Don Quixote?
no.
He mentions about the wine that they drink.
That's right. It's Sancho telling a story about his
Yeah.
ancestors being really good wine nosers, you know? I mean, just Hume trying to prove that there is such a thing as refined taste. of which PBR is no evidence whatsoever.
That's right. Thank you, Eric. Amen.
Do I need to just somehow spout bullshit on Hegel's concept of culture? I can do that just for a little while.
Yeah, do it.
Maybe
Fuck Hegel.
Yeah,
I could
Hunter's
only say that if Hunter's not here. I would not say it if Hunter was here.
Maybe it would be
Yeah,
worth.
we need culture for good taste and to be able to achieve the sublime.
I'm curious to hear some people riff on, I think he mentions it in both prefaces, the distinction he makes between like we're not yet doing the science. This has the negative utility, the critique, and maybe in that kind of connected to like him specifying like this is a transcendental, forget the word he would use, project, but not quite the doctrine, not quite the science.
In the Pluhar says he's this book, in I think if I remember right, involves a transcendental critique but is not transcendental philosophy yet.
Yeah, I'm still not quite sure what he means by transcendental philosophy. That's something I'm a little fuzzy on. Joey, I've never seen you with your hair down. You look very handsome with the glasses. Yeah, you look like a Fabio look.
I think I've heard you refer to Joey as handsome multiple times now I think about it.
Oh, I did? Oh, well, maybe.
I'm pretty sure I've heard that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Which I mean, granted he is. I totally agree. And the hair is great too.
Yeah, I wish I had hair like Joey.
I miss hair.
See, this is the top of 66 in the Pluhar, which is kind of in the middle between B27 and B28. Also, the paragraph starts, transcendental philosophy is the idea of a science for which the critique of pure reason is outlined. And then the second sentence, transcendental philosophy is the system of all principles of pure reason. So there's a definition.
What is that, though?
Yeah, good question. I don't know.
Oh.
I'm not sure what that means. And that's when he says, this critique is not already called transcendental philosophy, is due solely to this. In order for this critique to be a complete system, it would have to include a comprehensive analysis of the whole human a priori cognition. I mean, that is such a broad statement. I don't really have much of a sense of what that means. I mean, I think I get the critique. The critique, if I understand right, the critique is you want to figure out what the limits are, what the limits of reason. Like you want to figure out what the boundaries are, so you don't make stupid statements, or you don't make statements that you have no rational justification for. Yeah. So that I get that, and that's really the role of this book, right? Is to define those bounds. But then this, I guess, transcendental philosophy would then be a positive project where you actually compile a bunch of principles or something. I'm not sure.
Yeah, right now I'm thinking that that's what he's doing here is a transcendental critique. What he's indicating is work to be done in the future in terms of a transcendental philosophy as a system is precisely where Fichte is like, okay, I got you, dude.
Oh. Hmm.
So I'm having trouble with the connection between his use of a priori and then judgments and a priori and cognitions and a priori and concepts. Um, and maybe it's just the way that I'm thinking about these words. Um, but I don't see how these are available to us prior to experience, which is his whole thing, right? That he's laying out here. Um, and yeah, this is
No,
why I wanted to understand if he's defining knowledge in a different way.
It's not, again, it's not prior to experience, right? All knowledge is, all knowledge comes from experience, but saying that chronologically it's, it begins in experience is not to say that it comes from experience. So we can say that, we know about judgments, we know about concepts, we know about knowledge, right, from experience, but not everything we know, because we experience them. That's in the first instance, but not everything we know about it, we know it because of experience.
Okay, so it's part of the possibility of just it's the like the very foundation of
Yeah, to put it in other terms, right? We can know certain things from experience, but experience doesn't teach us on its own what are the conditions necessary, possible, necessary possible conditions for experience.
okay. And he says this in I think at the end of B1, page 44 of the Plur. But even though all our cognition starts with experience, that does not mean that all of it arises from experience. Okay. So yeah, this is why he's setting up all. So is for him maybe not the, I don't want to say the most important, but uh, maybe something that he heavily leans into or places a lot of emphasis on is the synthetic a priori, because he says like, yeah, the analytic a priori, it's cool, but like what's going to allow us to really expand knowledge and build a system is going to be the synthetic a priori.
Right, and making it explicit because he feels like this hasn't been made explicit before. So I think in his defense, for example, Anselm's ontological proof, I think Anselm thinks that's a kind of analytic. I'm just the definition of God. And it's all there in the definition of God. Boom, 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 boom. And Kant's going, that's not analytic. You have a definition of God and existence is not there in that you know what I mean? Like it's, or it doesn't work. You know what I mean? If you think the existence is a necessary attribute of God as such, that's not a warranted judgment, right? That's not actually an analytic judgment, and it's an unwarranted, unjustified synthetic judgment.
Would you say speculative synthetic?
Oh yeah, totally. That would be a form of speculative reason,
Right.
but it would be in its dogmatic employment prior to any awareness of an analytic synthetic distinction or any turn towards a transcendental mode of critique.
Does he ever, throughout the book, is he ever more meticulous with kind of his presentation or use of words in a way that allows you to have some more, allows you to organize them better rather than just kind of throwing them in?
This is kind of an introduction. He's laying out the nature of the project, and he's kind of trying to bring the reader up to the point where we can now discuss the transcendental aesthetic and start putting pieces together to paint a whole picture. But prior to that, this is where I'm coming from. This is why I think it's plausible, why I think it's important. There are some distinctions that I need to make so that you can follow my argument. Here they are.
Okay. That's
So
encouraging.
just to clarify a basic concept, Chase and Joey and I have been talking about judgments, and Chase said a judgment is a proposition connecting a predicate to a subject. That seems right to me. Is that correct? So like a bachelor is an unmarried male. You've got a subject connecting to a predicate, and that's a judgment, correct?
Yeah, that's right. That's
Or
right.
no, that's a. So here's something you tried to clarify for me once. It's like the proposition is the expression of a judgment, but and I never really understood what you meant exactly. But judgment is like, what is judgment if it's not I mean, as distinct from a proposition?
And especially right here, judgment is is bringing a particular underneath the concept.
Okay.
And then it would be the proposition which expresses that in verbal language. But
Okay.
for Kant in this book right now, we can think of every judgment or every empirical judgment, every speculative judgment as an attempt to bring a particular under a universal.
And then you express that in these propositions with subject predicate propositions.
Right, right.
Okay. And then another thing, and this came up last time when he says cognition, because from last time he makes that distinction between cognition and thinking. So cognition, here's another thing I'm confused about. So cognition has to do with empirical experience. Like I cognize, and which might include interior as well as exterior experience. I'm not so.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. The kinds of things that you can know and not merely just imagine or think.
Whereas thinking, I can think about things that might not be knowledge. Like, for example, God exists. I can think that.
Right.
But that's not a cognition because I can't. That's not within the domain of experience. Is that right?
That's right. That's right. Well, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. I think the problem with this cognition and the same with intuition is that we are never certain whether he's talking about the process or the outcome.
Hmm.
I don't know if you understand what I'm trying to say. It's never clear for me whether it's
Tell me, Luis, if this is what you mean. Like, is this a cognition? Like, I'm experiencing this book. Is that the cognition, or is
some other
some other mental process or something?
Yeah, the mental process is a power that you have in your mind to reach an understanding of a thing. Or it could mean when you reach the understanding of that thing, that's cognition. That's what I'm saying. Is I'm not sure whether it's the process or the outcome. I don't know if I made myself clear.
Yeah, I think there's a bit of an ambiguity, right? Cognition is the faculty of knowing.
The faculty, that's a word.
Cognition would be
the faculty or the outcome, what we finally reach, thanks to,
right,
or maybe both.
Right. But I think by and large, he's more talking about the process rather than the product. But he will talk about cognition, or you know what I mean? And he'll give examples of a cognition of, and then it's the product of thinking. But in general, when he's talking about placing limits on cognition.
Yeah. And I agree with Joe. Yeah, that's what I was trying to say. Intuition is the same. We don't know whether it's the process, faculty, or the outcome that comes from that.
But yeah, I mean, I think look if there's a definite article in it, or any article. Add to an intuition, the intuition, rather than intuition.
So would it make? See, I'll make. Well, Joey's not here anymore. I'll make Joey happy. So I'm sorry, not Joey, Joseph. Joseph.
Hey,
water bottle.
Now I understand. I mean,
would it be proper to say? I'm not sure how to talk about this. This is a cognition, or I'm not. You would just say that's a bottle, right?
What do you mean by this? I mean the object or what?
Yeah, literally, like. This is a bottle. Would you say, would it be proper to say I am cognizing the bottle?
Yeah, you can say in cognizing this bottle, I know that it exists, that it is spatial, right?
So in cognizing the bottle?
That would be an experiential cognition. When you are having.
And Chase is like, why are we talking about this nitpicky shit?
I'm just afraid if people mention like this of empirical particulars, then eventually it's gonna lead to, oh yeah, phenomenology is spirit. That begins the whole dialectic with perception, something like that. I can't remember. If only there's someone here to remind us.
We can be, maybe we
To
should be
PBR
grateful
with.
Hunter's not here
Right.
right now.
Right. So would we're gonna summon them. Would the cognitive, I don't know what the word I'm looking for. I don't want to use the word form to incur the wrath of Chase. Structure, would the cognitive structure of the water bottle in this case be a priori, but not pure a priori?
There's going to be an a pure a priori element to even the cognition of the water bottle.
Okay.
I mean, this is imprecise, but my imprecise way of thinking about it is my experience. I have no unprocessed experience. Every experience I have of the world is processed by some mental, something. My mind is processing experience. And so insofar as I have an experience, there was the stuff that was given to my mind, and then my mind munches on that. My mind processes it. So every empirical experience, every sensory experience, I'm not sure about interior experience,
Yeah. He
every
talks about
sensory experience is
experiential
both.
cognition. He talks about experiential cognition. So
Mhm.
what you're saying, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. And experiential cognition is a process is like, again, this is probably inaccurate, processed data. It's like sensory data of some kind. I mean, I hesitate to use that word because in contemporary philosophy it could lead us astray, but you've got sensory data and then your mind does stuff with it.
The
And so
Vorstellung.
what's that?
The Vorstellung. I mean,
Vorstellung?
you got the
Vorstellung.
sensory thing, and then your mind creates the Vorstellung. Yeah.
Representation.
Yeah. Or present, or Pluhar translates it as presentation.
Right.
But yeah, that's what I'm using Vorstellung because I think it's more. I try to do some research on the term, and I think the best translation would be like mental scenario. Because one of the translations of Vorstellung is also performance. It's like something that is performed in your brain. So it would be a mental scenario. It's not, and that I think that captures the idea of presentation in the sense that Pluhar talks about, and representation. Your mind is creating a mental scenario of something, of the thing itself. I guess, I don't know. Maybe I'm talking bullshit here. I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe the world is will and representation. Sorry.
Although uh, some translations have it as will and idea.
Oh.
Like what Vorstellung,
Yeah.
willing idea.
Yep. Although I think usually in the context of German philosophy, it's usually translated as representation.
Representation, yeah. But Pluhar doesn't want to use the word.
Yeah, so he does presentation, right?
Yeah, he uses presentation.
I like that better.
Yeah.
I mean, and again, correct me if I'm wrong. Actually, I'm thinking I got this after Chase drugged me through Deleuze a couple times. But um, one reason I worry about the word idea is because that word comes up much later in the ideas of reason, right? So
That's right.
Hmm.
yeah, so
Yeah.
that one's a little
Yeah.
dangerous to use.
Which is why also for concepts and ideas are they're distinct.
That's right.
Well, we'll get to that later.
No, I'm on my group. Sorry.
maybe it's worth talking about causation, since we talked about that with Hume. Let's see, where was I looking at? There was a particular place where he starts talking about causation, and he's like, well, Hume almost got it right, but then he didn't quite get there. Because I think it's another case of it's a case of synthetic a priori, I believe, the causation, I believe, because you know that every effect has to have a cause. That's not something that that's a, that's a synthetic judgment, but it's not something that you can discover through your senses, which I think he agrees with Hume. There is nothing in your senses that you can infer through your senses what things are causes and what things are effects. You can't, there's nothing in your senses that tells you that. And so, Hume's like, the best we can do is, we don't really know that there's any necessity there. We feel like it's a necessity, but it's really just a habit. And am I correct, Eric? Kant's like, no, it is a necessity. It's just not one you can get through your senses.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, the key point is necessity. The necessity that B will follow A.
Yeah. So you can never have an intuition or experience of necessity in a given experience or universality.
Correct.
And that's where he's saying that's where we need synthetic a priori judgments. And that's what Hume was saying was impossible to have. You can only have synthetic a posteriori experience, or you can have analytic a priori. And never shall the two meet until you get Kant. And yeah, his whole thing is, yeah, he agrees with Hume exactly about that point that you don't have just within experience, you don't have that kind of necessity of causality. So that becomes all his whole thing is all these concepts, the categories of the understanding are going to be just these kind of things, these universal necessary conditions that we don't actually have as an experience. They're conditions of experience, which are not themselves experiences. I'm pretending like I really know something about Kant,
It
but
sounded good
is
to
it
me.
working? I don't know. I don't actually know anything about Kant. If I say anything about Kant, like just your best bet is to assume that I'm wrong. So just remember that for everything I say about Kant, at least. Actually, probably for everyone.
Were you reading
So,
that off of a teleprompter?
Yes, but the teleprompter was an a priori form of intuition in my inner experience.
Was it a Darstalon or a Borstalon?
Definitely a Vorstellung.
Hmm. Good answer.
Vorstellung? Yeah.
sounds like someone like you should name children or pets after those terms, but no, probably not. Be too hard to yell at them.
Have a dog named Vorstellung.
That would be fun.
That would be that would be awesome.
One dog named Borstelung, another one Darstelung, and then you have to explain, well, they both roughly translate into representation. But see, in the German, it's a really big difference, right?
So one thing that confuses me a little bit about the necessity thing is um, the fact that you have to infer. I mean, one thing that Hume seems right to me about when you're talking about particular causes and effects. I don't. It doesn't seem like there really is necessity there because induction never gives you necessity, right? So like you can see, you know, to Kuhn's point, you can see things constantly conjoined, and you can therefore you can say, well, then this one must be the cause of that. But you never know that with 100% certainty ever. And so that's not where the necessity is. So where is the necessity? Just that every effect must have a cause? I mean, is it just that, like, where's the, because it's not in any particular empirical cause and effect, right?
That's, yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah. Yeah, he's not trying to counter Hume and say, no, actually we can directly perceive the lawfulness of nature or come to a cognition of the law, as it is. But the lawfulness of nature is already presupposed if we're going to understand our experiences as causally related.
So what's the a priori is that every event has a cause or something like that. But that's a priori and synthetic, but then in particular cases when you're actually doing empirical science, all you can know is that
Yeah,
beforehand.
yeah,
But
you
then
can
like
try. Right. All
which
you know. Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
but which particular causes follow or effects follow from what causes, you're never going to get that a priori.
No, that's right. That's right. So yeah, to think about it in other terms, like we can say that Newton's laws were arrived at empirically, but they have an underlying a priori assumption in that Newton already took the world to be lawfully governed. Right? It's not caprice and it's not mere probability. Like Newton's already assuming, if conditions A pertain, sometimes these conditions will force conditions B, just as by necessity. We can describe nature in such a way that A will necessarily lead to B. Not probably, but necessarily. But
But again, particular things are probabilistic.
yeah, and any particular law of nature which we form is going to be our best explanation of our experiences. It's going to try to encompass and explain as many of our experiences as it can. But the lawfulness of that law is transcendental. The law itself would be an empirical formulation, an attempt to know nature. The lawfulness of the law is what's already transcendentally assumed.
Eric, can I ask you a specific example? So I think I understood what you just said, but I'm not sure. How would Kant deal? How would Kant? I don't know what word to use. Conceptualize, identify Kepler's three laws of planetary motion. Using the vocabulary we've been discussing tonight, a posteriori, a priori, synthetic, whatever.
Okay. So,
Ed,
go ahead.
what are Kepler's laws of planetary motion? I don't recall.
The first one is that the orbits are elliptical, not circular, and that they sweep equal areas in equal time periods. And I'm blanking on the third one.
I don't remember the third one.
So they can't be a priori. I mean, just be empiric. I mean, I have empirical evidence. Well, either they can't be, or if Kant said they were, they would be wrong, because it turns out that Mercury violates, violates those. At least they violates the law of Newtonian planetary motion. It has a perturbation in its orbit, and no one understood why that was until the theory of relativity. And So yeah, so I'll just throw that back to Eric then. So then how those laws of planetary motion,
There would be like empirical, speculative judgments, and they'd be couched as a priori because Kepler takes them to be universal in necessity, but that's proven wrong, right? All Kant wants to prove is that if we find out that Kepler's wrong, then whatever phenomena doesn't fit into his theory is also lawfully governed. We just haven't discovered the overarching law that accounts for this anomaly.
So Kant's assuming that there is, even if Kepler's incorrect, but that there are laws that govern planetary motion.
Yes, the starry heavens above me and the moral law within me.
so that makes sense to me because I mean that's what scientists have to assume, right? Because if you didn't and you see something, so for example, you see that light doesn't do what it's supposed to do in deep space. And so, you could say, now dark matter, and they could just say, I mean, if they didn't assume the universe was lawful, you would just say, well, that's weird. And you're just stuck, right? Oh, look, there's something that's not following the laws. I guess the universe isn't lawful. But simply in order to try to, the fact that you're looking for an explanation implies you're assuming that it is lawful and you just haven't figured out what that law is yet.
Exactly. And that on Hume's account, that lawfulness can never, that lawfulness is, for all we know, just a habit. You know what I mean? It's a superimposition of our psychology. We can never know nature to be lawful. And why do we even presuppose it? Because it makes us comfortable, right? Whereas Kant is, in the wake of Newton, like, no. You kind of have to presuppose that nature's lawful to come up with this stuff. Even if we get the specific laws wrong, that it is lawful. He says we can know nature is lawful. Specific laws we may not know.
Who has the mechanical keyboard?
That's me.
So Carmen was asking about the differences between a priori universality and necessity. I'm going to take a shot at a priori. A priori just means a priori knowledge is things you can know prior to experience. How does that work? So like, is that correct? I mean, like I can know, I don't have to consult experience to know that 7 + 5 is equal to 12. I don't have to do any experiments. Or the triangle thing. I don't have to do any experiments. I don't have to do any tests. I don't have to do any measurements. I know that prior to experience. So that I'll let someone else go for a necessity and universality.
It just
Someone
seems
pointed out they always kind of are together, linked together. Go ahead, Carmen.
No, I just say it just seems to use them undistinctly.
Right. They're different attributes that always kind of, accompany each other because they pertain to the same structure of reason. If something is universal, then it's probably necessary. Otherwise, why would it be? How can you know it would be universal if it wasn't necessary? If you already know it's necessary, you know it's going to be universal. But these are two different attributes, right, of something, that it's universal and that it's necessary.
But if you just wanted to define, I mean, could you define universality by itself as just always unconditionally, I want to say true, like it just always is that way. Like it is never going to not be that way. It is that way for every time, every person, it's an unconditional. It just is.
Right. In all times and in all places.
Yeah.
This is the case. Or a separate statement. Necessarily.
Yeah.
This is the case. But
it cannot be otherwise.
Right. It cannot be otherwise. And then Kant thinks that these are going to yield the same kind of a priori. These are both indications of a priori thinking that are intimately related. I'll also point out, just in passing, the major formulations of the categorical imperative. One is on universalizability, and the other one, the formulation of humanity, is predicated on the necessity of any rational agency whatsoever. So these two formulations point to one categorical imperative.
Right, because I was saying this, a lot of these seems very anthropocentric. Now, so like for instance, when we were talking about mathematics, that yes, it depends on a priori intuition of times or space, but it means it like it's provable or it's valid for beings that experience time the way we do only. Well,
Yeah, yeah, that's right. What does God need geometry?
not true.
Here's a related question. I just want to confirm. So if I, and this is beyond the scope a bit, but in terms of his ethics, he believes that that is his ethical principles. Again, I'm going to say this wrong, but are more. He defines moral principles that he believes are binding on all rational beings, not merely human beings, but all rational beings. At least in the grounding, he says that explicitly. I'm not just talking about human beings. I'm talking about all rational beings. But then he would not say that about what he's doing in the Critique of Pure Reason. Is that correct? Does he restrict that to just human beings? Because he's very explicit. I don't care if in the grounding, I don't care if it's human or not. If there is a rational being, there are universal moral laws that are binding on that rational being. But his scope is it more restricted in the Critique of Pure Reason then?
In all, with the Copernican turn and the various insistences that we can only have a metaphysics that's a metaphysics for us. And he is sent, like, Carmen was saying, it's a very anthropocentric turn centering human consciousness here.
But not rational consciousness in general, but only human rational consciousness. That's what I was like, the human thing.
Right. Yeah, I think he would extend to all rational finite consciousness. So there is,
Okay.
we were kind of hinting earlier, we didn't quite get there, but there is another species of intuition which he calls intellectual intuition, which only God has, right? We don't have that. We have sensible intuition, which is finite. And nearly everything that happens in this Critique of Pure Reason pertains to rational beings like us that are stuck in our finitude. If we
So
had
that would mean that like all rational aliens, other place in the universe would, presuming they would have a finite consciousness, would experience the universe in the same way we do.
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
So why did the dolphins leave? Sorry.
Yeah, thanks for the fish.
They could read the writing on the wall.
Uh,
Cosmic Thorway coming here.
Yeah. Inter something bypass, interstellar bypass or something. I can't remember.
So, in a copy of the Critique of Pure Reason, I bought a used copy. A student that I can't help but believe was a sophomore undergrad wrote in the margins of the text aliens with an exclamation point. I think next to the thing of like all rational beings or whatever. And I think it was at that point I was like, I can't read this. Like, I need to get a different book. Like, I'm. There was also this student also pretty much every page would have one thing in the margins saying like no or bullshit. And I'd be like, I mean, okay, maybe, but yeah.
Yeah, bullshit is not an argument.
No, it's not. So I've got two copies of the Geyer and Woods translation, but one of them has sophomore alien writing all over it. I have nothing more profound to say than that.
I love you, Chase.
Oh, maybe some people noticed Ray Rodriguez isn't here,
Yeah.
and he's not here, which means necessarily universally he cannot turn his camera on and show his face. So
He did say that last week, didn't he?
he did say that.
He made a
And
promise
notice
and he broke that promise in a cat group.
he's
Oh.
totally violating the moral law here. I think what should we do with him? I don't
Something. This is imperative, guys. What category? Oh,
Exiled into the wilderness.
And
okay.
Hunter too. Hunter would probably go, eh.
Yeah, Hunter would be like, so Tuesday. My average Tuesday.
Probably keeping up with his duties. He's a
Good
he
pun.
told,
Good.
he told us he has these like official duties now, his husbandry duties.
I wonder if he's aware that he calls Tori sometimes in the Don Quixote group his Dulcinea.
Aww.
She does this. I don't know. I don't know her at all, but I wonder how she would feel about being called his Dulcinea. I don't know. Maybe she'd be fine with it.
what does that mean?
It's Don Quixote's imagined lady.
It means Hunter's being pathetic.
Uh, I, is he a simp?
Oh, for Pete's sakes.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with being a simp,
That
especially to imaginary uh people.
I disagree.
Can we not use Andrew Tate's vernacular in a Kant discussion group? I'm going to put the kibosh on that right now.
Interesting.
Yeah, I would love to avoid
Inappropriate
any
terms.
vernacular of Tate or Peterson. Like there's a time and a place. This is not it. So I think it's romantic.
I mean, you're referring to a simp, right? That's a 'cause I
Ah,
think that's much broader
yeah.
than Andrew Tate, but I'll not argue it here. We can duel on Discord.
The duel of Discord.
Fiercely defend using the word simp.
The battleground.
Not really. I'm not really gonna do that.
So it seems like we're kind of running out of steam. How are we
Because
doing?
I don't know anything about Kant, so I can't really.
Well,
I can't say anything because I don't fucking know.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I have to spend more time with it. But this discussion has been helpful tremendously for me, at least. I guess I've reached that confusion stage with Kant where like I need to like spend some time ruminating on it to see what actually sinks in.
I think one of the most helpful things about tonight is we got through a lot of vocabulary, I mean, a priori and a posteriori, synthetic analytic, intuitions, cognition, necessity, and all that. I mean, I think all that vocabulary it's just going to keep coming at us. So that having a basic grasp of that, I think, is going to be very helpful.
Yeah.
I think that's the main objective here in this introduction is to get a handle on these distinctions and the nature of the project about synthetic a priori. And the way I like the way he lays it out. There's mathematics, there's natural sciences, and we want to go beyond that. And that was good. And then this developed later, and then, bleh, that's what I'm trying to do here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we should. I'm not. Doesn't feel like we need to sell ourselves short and say we're just so confused. That's why we're running out of steam. What? We did good today. We did good.
Oh, you're so nice. I appreciate
No, I didn't mean that. What I meant is maybe we've covered everyone's major questions, perhaps. I don't know.
It was such an efficient use of time.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can get back to like work.
I mean, following Joseph's comment, I think it does take a little time for it to kind of like set.
Mm.
You have to sit with it for a bit, which is, I think, a lot of the best, most profound philosophy. You're not going to get it the first time you read it. You kind of need to sit with it for a bit and really kind of test it, and carry it with you and think about it a few months later. But I mean, okay, so I'm going to toot my horn a little bit. I was really proud of that comment I put on the Discord. The CPR, first it throws you for a turn, and then you get a sense for it, and then like
That was good.
I don't know.
That was good. It's a good comment.
It was clever. I got the references especially in the part about the sublime and the evident duty to finish the second. I thought it was clever. Yeah.
So Joseph, you're at the stage where you're just starting to get a sense for it.
Yeah.
You've been thrown for a turn.
Yeah. Take a little while for it to sink in with me. Ruminate with it, think about it, come back to it.
You'll understand.
Ah.
I just saw another term. I think this one's easy. Pure, when he uses the word pure. I think he just means purely rational, right? Like not empirical, no empirical content.
Right. No admixture of empirical content.
I have a memory of that question being asked and saying it means not empirical, and then Alistair's saying that I was wrong somehow.
Uh-oh.
I can't remember what he said or why I was wrong, but I do remember him saying I was wrong. And it's basically a traumatic memory I have, but yeah. Thanks for bringing that up.
No.
But yeah, it's like nothing foreign in it is the pure. Nothing, no empirical thing mixed in with it.
Yeah, especially what means pure a priori, then that's very clear. But I want to say every time he uses pure, he basically means a priori.
Yeah. Not empirical. Even if Alistair says I'm wrong.
Maybe it's because he, for unknown reason, Alistair thinks of me as a peer, which I think is not true. But he's much gentler with me than he is with you, since you're just his, peon student. Because in retrospect, when I think about conversations we've had, I have thought about things that I have said that were just stupid, and he never called me on them. Whereas I'm sure if you said some of the things I said, he probably would have just slapped you. Whereas me, he's like, he just lets it go.
Yeah, he like dunks on me like every reading group pretty much. If the more people, the more he'll dunk on me. It's like 20 people, he'll like destroy me.
His defense, you're pretty dunkable. So.
That's very true, especially with Kant. Kant, yeah, it's bad. I mean, I am like 5'6", so very dunkable on.
He's probably resisting. He probably might want to dunk on you more. He just has to like hold back.
Yeah, but then Alistair will like do the atypical boomer thing and forget to mute his mic and go feed his cats, and then you hear like 5 minutes of crumpling and cat food bags and meowing and all these other things. So we can give him shit right back.
I remember exactly what you're referring to.
Yeah. Alistair, your mic.
I think that's I think that was kind of that's not like a normal thing he usually does. I think that was really just like one occasion where he legitimately messed up and did not mute
Alistair?
himself.
No.
Yeah,
No.
it was pretty funny.
What I th you when I we were talking about Alistair and his cats once, and you sent me a video from a class you guys had online, and Alistair is talking. He's just talking, and this cat is just walking back and forth across the screen. And Alistair, he seems not even to notice the cat. He's talking and he's gesturing and he's saying stuff, and this cat's just kind of.
Yeah, I've got a video of his cat also attacking him. Why?
Oh wow.
It's pretty funny. He eventually has, and then the cat like attacks the camera or something, and he ends up having to like stop the video and like say, "Okay, I'm back," and then it's like, "Oh, yeah, yeah."
Yeah,
That
he does.
Oh,
I should. I think I still have the video somewhere. I
You
should.
should totally post that in Discord. 100%.
I think I will. Yeah.
Yeah, Alistair doesn't mince words either when he doesn't like a particular philosopher. I think he called Heidegger a Looney Tunes nutcracker.
he 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 once called him when he was talking with me, that old Nazi.
Ah, yeah, I forgot about that one. That was it. Yeah. Doesn't mince words.
I think that's a technical philosophical term for Heidegger, right? That's part of the parlance, right? That old Nazi. We all know who you're talking about.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Of course.
It's an analytic judgment.
Oh,
Yeah.
well played. Well played, Luis. Well played.
Concept of
I
Nazi is contained in the concept of
Yeah,
Heidegger.
Heidegger.
Yes. Analytic.
I'm scared that I'm starting to understand that humor. This is truly frightening. So.
I
The
think
nerd humor.
I've heard Alistair call pretty much every philosopher he talks about an asshole. I think that's universal and necessary. If it's a philosopher he talks about, eventually it comes out he's an asshole.
So if I told him if he could start being meaner to his students, then he would write greater books.
Maybe
Yeah.
that explains his treatment of me.
My thesis advisor would smack, just whack grad students. He would only insult undergrads, and I mean sometimes in very not very acceptable ways. But grad students, like in a seminar, he would walk around the table and just smack people on the head or the back.
You
So
pulled a
he
When
actually
when was
made it all
this?
the way to retirement. I mean, his
Oh,
wife used to say, "They're going to put you in jail," but they never did.
Yeah.
He was a,
When was this? In the 90s?
um, yeah, no, in the, yeah, I guess it was, yeah, in the 90s. Yeah. I mean, he was this old Korean guy, like, and I've mentioned this before. He was an intelligence officer in the South Korean army in the Korean War, and used to interrogate uh, prisoners.
oh,
Bet that thesis defense was fun.
yeah.
Actually, it was great because he was on my side, and there were two people in the committee who hated Nietzsche. And when I walk, you know how you walk out of the room and then they talk about you and decide whether they're going to, give you the degree or not. And I heard this, and then I'd hear his voice. And so I think probably the only reason I got my degree is because Sung was in there fighting for me, screaming and yelling, and he was very intimidating when he would do that. So
I think, yeah, he probably literally used physical violence
he
to.
could well have. They were probably like, "No, don't hurt me." Anyway, okay. Are we done for the night?
Adorned.
I'll,
Excellent
I'll,
discussion.
So I was going to point out one more thing, just because
Sure.
we were talking about that old Nazi, and it reminded me. There is a line here on near B30 where he's a human cognition has two stems, sensibility and understanding, which perhaps spring from a common root, though one unknown to us. So if you're sympathetic to Heidegger, you can see perhaps him latching onto that common root of which sensibility and understanding are offshoots.
Oh yeah, I think that's also Heidegger latched on that for his reading of Kant.
Yeah, that's what I'm. Yeah, that's
Oh,
what
okay,
I'm.
okay, yeah.
Yeah, here in Kant, this is an unknown. Like you can't possibly go deeper than that. And Heidegger says, "Hold my beer."
Yeah.
The synthetic power of imagination. Which I think that's what uh, Heidegger ends up saying. That's like the big thing in Kant is the synthetic power of imagination.
That's right. That's another point. That's another good point to finish off with, or to wrap up with, right? I mean, I think I made the point in the Discord. Kant is not quite as foundationalist as Descartes and other thinkers, and Fichte in particular wants to find the one principle upon which to build everything else. What we see in Kant is already a kind of like a coming together of dualism. The beginning of it is when this and this come together. You know, when sensibility and understanding come together. Like his foundation is already non-singular, right?
Mhm.
Okay, that actually helps. I saw you posted that in the Discord, and I was actually wondering about the specifics of that, and you just explained it. So, yeah.
I mean, I don't want to get too far down the Fichte rabbit hole, but on the other hand, Fichte, and one of the Fichte bros is here, so he'll probably keep me straight, Mario. Um, but that he also says that the body is a transcendental condition for the possibility of consciousness, and so even for Fichte, there's that self-positing I, but in order for that I to become aware, there has to be already a body and a world. So yeah. So I mean, again, like I said, he does have that one foundation, but on the other hand, it requires that other, yeah,
Yeah, it quickly breaks up into more than just a singularity. Yeah.
right.
I'm not trying to dunk on Fichte. I'm just, this is kind of what Fichte was trying to correct what Kant didn't do, which was to give a singular principle as the foundation.
Yeah.
Kant kind of gives us if there is anything foundational, it's always a coming together of two different things or a relationship, so it's not quite a single foundation as such as two elements brought together.
Oh, Nilsa's trying to bring
Yeah,
dogs to the mix.
There's a cute
Amos has
puppy.
entered the chat.
Oh, I get this dog where
What do you think, Seamus?
the puppy.
And then Eric's going to bring his puppy,
Oh, what a big little guy.
his lap dog. I don't have any of my cats. Okay. So any other last thing? Okay, well, thanks. I found that helpful.
Me too. Thank you all.
Well, I'll be here next week knowing
Sound-
more words.
Sounds great.
Good to see
Ray
y'all again.
Rodriguez will totally be back and have his camera on.
Yeah, so yeah, you make sure of that. Okay.
Bye.
All right.
Bye.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.